After making Julian's new lover cry, he held my head down and forced me to apologize to her. He even used kidnappers to abduct my parents and threaten me. Adeline, I'll give you 3 minutes. If you don't apologize to Isla within 3 minutes, you can forget about seeing your parents again. I stared at Julian with wide eyes, my eyes bloodshot, but he remained unmoved. Minute after minute passed. I didn't believe he would be so heartless to me and refused to give in. As a result, 3 minutes later, I saw my parents suspended high above on the city's tallest Ferris wheel. At that moment, my heart died completely. I used all my strength and spoke in a hoarse voice. Julian didn't know that I had suffered a major shock 3 years ago and had become mute. Just now, I had come out of the hospital after getting my medication. Because I had a fever, I accidentally bumped into Isla while walking. Julian saw this scene and grabbed my hand, pushing me hard onto the stone steps in the garden, and demanding that I apologize to Isla. I bowed, put my hands together and bowed deeply to Isla, filled with apology. But she refused to accept it, insisting that I apologize verbally before she would be satisfied. He thought I was just being childish and didn't want to apologize to Isla, as I had done before. He looked at me with increasingly cold eyes, grabbing my hair and threatening in a cold voice. If you don't apologize to Isla, next up will be your grandmother lying in a hospital bed. As he spoke, Julian's bodyguard pushed my grandmother in front of me. My eyes widened, and a hoarse, rattling sound came from my throat, but I desperately couldn't utter a single sound. Julian kicked me and covered my eyes with a piece of cloth. Don't look at me with that lustful look, I find it disgusting. I shook my head frantically and gestured to tell him the fact that my voice was ruined. But Julian just frowned and looked at me with disgust. Isla hooked her arm around Julian's arm and looked at me sweetly. Julian Gidge, does she not want to apologize to Isla? Her eyes are so fierce and scary when she looks at Isla. Isla just wants an apology, but if older sister doesn't want to apologize, it's okay for Isla to suffer a little. Julian gently patted Isla's hand and said softly, "Don't worry, I will definitely make her apologize to you today." He frowned slightly and looked at the bodyguard. The bodyguard quickly pushed my grandmother to the foot of the Ferris wheel. My seriously ill grandmother was lying in bed, struggling to breathe and trembling all over. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart felt like it was being torn apart. But my throat could only desperately make broken, rattling sounds. 3 years ago, I was kidnapped and beaten by criminals for half a year while protecting Julian. The daily screams and roars had shattered my vocal cords. And every time I screamed, it was fuel for them, leaving a demonic shadow in my heart. After being rescued, I was severely traumatized and could no longer say a single word. Seeing that my grandmother was about to be dragged up, Julian looked at me coldly, as if he wouldn't give up until he heard my apology. I closed my eyes tightly, and nightmare-like sounds roared in my ears, filling my eardrums and tearing at my nerves. In despair, I clenched my fists. A taste of iron surged in my throat, and a trace of blood spilled from my lips. In despair, I opened my mouth in a hoarse voice. "I'm sorry." My throat, which hadn't spoken for 3 years, was like a dilapidated bellows, making an ugly and shrill noise. Julian was stunned for a moment. I even saw a trace of concern in his eyes, but it was fleeting. He glanced at me, probably thinking about the fact that I had abandoned him 3 years ago, and scoffed, mocking, "No wonder you haven't spoken all this time. It turns out you've turned into this voice. It's disgusting to listen to." My heart ached fiercely, and I gripped the stone steps beside me, saying nothing. The Julian from 3 years ago would never have said that. Back then, he was still a boy, holding my hand, looking at me with sparkling eyes, praising my singing. Now time had passed, and everything was devastated. My throat, barely able to speak, was still throbbing with intense pain. Every word felt like it was being torn out with a dull knife. I could only beg concisely, "My parents." "Grandma." Julian kept his word. Even though he loathed me, he still had my parents released and sent to the hospital. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that Julian didn't completely hate me yet. I picked up the broken phone beside me, ready to leave. But in the next second, Julian grabbed my arm. He stared at me with a sullen face, his eyes dark, his thin lips tightly pressed together. I froze for a moment, already being pulled into the car by Julian. His expression was sinister. The look in his eyes was like a fierce beast as he cornered me, the hatred in his eyes having nowhere to hide. I couldn't help but shrink back, an endless wave of fear flooding my heart. What do you want to do, Julian? 500,000. Be with me. He looked at me coldly, tossing a card casually at my face. My chest heaved violently, the humiliation and anger surging into my mind. I turned my head away in silent refusal. In the next second, Julian gripped my chin tightly, his voice like a devil emerging from hell. He gently patted my cheek. Adeline, think of your parents and your grandmother. Didn't you come back for money? I've already checked. You don't have a single penny on you right now. I heard you even begged your childhood sweetheart. What did he ask for? Sleeping with him? Or playing around with him? Sleeping with him is no better than sleeping with me. Does he know which part of you is more sensitive? Does he know how to satisfy you? Besides me, who else would want you, this Adeline with the already tarnished reputation? My face instantly paled. All the layers of shame that covered me seemed to be torn apart. Humiliated tears gathering in my eyes, refusing to fall. But the fall of the Lee family was all because of him. If it hadn't been to protect Julian back then, my family wouldn't have ended up bankrupt, and I wouldn't have been kidnapped and humiliated. But no matter what I said, Julian didn't believe it. He thought that back then, I looked down on his humble origins and was kidnapped for eloping with someone else. Julian grabbed my collar tightly and roared. What happened back then was your own fault. You wronged me. Adeline, you have to pay me back. To take revenge on me, Julian locked me in his specially built basement, bound me with chains. He used my parents to force me to sign a year-long contract of servitude. Every day, I was trapped in a dark, narrow room, unable to see a single ray of light. In my despair, the basement door was opened. Isla walked up to me with food, grabbed my hair, and dumped it all on the ground. Her round, flawless eyes were full of disdain and contempt. Her thin lips parted slightly. Eat it. Brother Julian said, you'll only get one meal a day from now on. I froze for a moment. Before I could react, Isla pressed me down onto the floor. The sticky food stuck to my body, and I could only close my eyes tightly, enduring the humiliation. Isla was dissatisfied with my reaction. She scoffed and sneered. Sister probably doesn't know yet. The company where your parents used to work has already fired them. Now no one in the entire capital dares to hire them. They can only pick up trash outside. And your grandmother, she has Alzheimer's, right? All alone in the hospital, so pitiful. She threw the photos in my face. Seeing my haggard parents in the photos, my heart felt like it had been cut open, aching unbearably. My eyes bloodshot, I lunged at Isla with a hoarse voice. Why? Adeline. Julian, who had just arrived, saw the scene of me tackling Isla as soon as he entered. Without thinking, he picked me up and threw me onto a nearby table. After not eating for days, my body was incredibly weak. After knocking over the table, I felt a moment of dizziness and fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Blood flowed from the corner of my mouth, and my throat filled with a bloody taste. Julian's originally furious gaze hesitated when he saw me, and he frowned as he walked over to me, questioning with disgust. How did you turn yourself into this in just a few days? Looking like a beggar, not even half of Adeline left. I mocked myself with a curl of my lips. Adeline? I wasn't that anymore. I was covered in dirt, with blood at the corner of my mouth, and my clothes were messy from several conflicts. Isla walked up to Julian, placed her soft hands on his temples, and gently massaged them, saying understandingly, Julian Gidge, I heard there's a Lotus Cauldron at the Taiping Temple. Anyone who has done wrong can wash away their sins, if they wash themselves in it 990 times under the gaze of the public. The Lotus Cauldron, with water temperatures as high as 70 degrees Celsius, and thin air, making even breathing difficult. My hand tightened by my side as I looked up at Julian. Julian hesitated for a moment, a trace of reluctance in his eyes. Isn't that a bit? Isla interrupted him, walked up to Julian, and subtly revealed a pinch mark on her arm. Julian Gidge is soft-hearted. Isla doesn't want to either, but Isla also doesn't want to see my sister go astray. And Julian Gidge, don't worry, it's just a formality. It definitely won't hurt Adeline. Yeah. My voice, pretending to be strong, was mixed with a collapsing wail. Julian, it wasn't me, it really wasn't me. What do you want for you to let me go? These words touched Julian's sore spot. His previously gentle gaze instantly turned sharp and fierce, and he grabbed my collar. Adeline, even now you still don't repent. After speaking, he closed his eyes tightly, and when he opened them again his anger had subsided, and his tone returned to its usual coldness. Do everything Isla says. After Julian left, Isla gave me a triumphant look and squatted down in front of me, mocking me. I lay on the ground, biting my lip tightly, letting the tears fall freely, my heart feeling as if it had been torn apart. I was taken away by the ant and scrubbed 180 times with disinfectant. The ant grabbed my arm and scrubbed hard, her tone cold and stiff. Ms. Adeline, don't blame us for being ruthless. Blame yourself for coming back. Only when my skin was bleeding did Julian reluctantly nod and pull me out of the water. Only when I sat down on the chair and was being arranged did I realize something was wrong, grabbing Julian's arm and asking, "Where are you taking me?" Looking at my fearful and somewhat distorted face, Julian smiled with satisfaction. You'll know when we get there. A good place where you can wash away the sins on your body. An endless fear welled up inside me, and I instinctively felt that it was not a good place for me. By the time Julian half dragged me to the place, and I saw the scene inside, my face turned pale in an instant. At the banquet, a gleaming glass window stood prominently in the center. Above it, a massive display screen was positioned. Realizing what Julian intended, I clung to his arm desperately. Dark memories from the past swirled into my mind like a nightmare, my voice trembling with fear. Julian. You can't do this to me. Isla leaned onto Julian, gently but firmly prying my hands away. Sister, brother is doing this for your own good. He spent an entire month building this atonement platform. The Lotus candlesticks inside were even obtained urgently and at great expense, all specifically to cleanse your sins. And to let everyone know about your return. Julian even invited people who knew you, sister, including your mom and dad. My ears were ringing, my heart pounding wildly. She looked at Julian and said, "The banquet is about to start, brother. Why don't you go and take care of things? I'll handle things here." I shook my head frantically, my voice lost again to fear, only able to let out deathly gasps. "Don't do this to me. Don't." Julian hesitated, glancing at me, then knelt down in front of me and ruffled my hair. I thought I had won a moment of his tenderness. But the next second, I plunged into hell. His voice was as cold as an iceberg, striking my heart with brutal force. "Go, Adeline, go and atone. After this is over, we can live our lives together properly." "But Julian, after this is over, will there even be a future for us?" Julian was led away by the bodyguards. Isla squatted down in front of me, scrutinizing my face with mockery. "Adeline, I never thought you'd return alive." Hearing this, I was shocked. "What do you mean?" Isla gave me a meaningful look, then walked to the door and instructed, "In 5 minutes, deplete the oxygen in the Lotus stove." After Isla left, the bodyguard stood beside me, locking me into the Lotus stove as I struggled incessantly. The scalding water began to boil. I struggled helplessly, clutching the recorder in my palm, watching the rising water level with despair. Did Julian know that the so-called Lotus stove wasn't always oxygenated? Did he know that Isla wanted to kill me? When the water level reached my chest, the bodyguard who had been watching me received a call from Julian. His low and indifferent tone came from the phone. "How is Adeline doing? Why isn't it over yet?" I gulped down 2 mouthfuls of water, struggled towards the phone, and shouted with all my strength, "Julian, save me. The Lotus stove has no oxygen. Julian, I'm going to die. Isla wants to kill me." 3 years ago, Isla sent people to kidnap your parents and frame me, Julian. The bodyguard didn't expect me to have any strength left, his brow furrowing as he pressed me into the water. Isla leaned against Julian, staring at him with innocent eyes, sobbing softly. "How can sister slander me like that? 3 years ago Isla was still in school. How could she know those bad people? Brother knows that." "It's not true, Julian. Please believe me this once. I'm really going to die." Julian paused for a moment, then scoffed with disdain. "Stop making a scene, Adeline. You even have the audacity to slander Isla. Put away your petty schemes. Do you think I'll ever believe you again? I didn't. Julian hung up the phone directly, the cold dial tone piercing my heart, signaling my end. Endless despair rose in my heart. In the final 5 minutes, the bodyguard looked at me deeply, a trace of pity in his cold eyes. Is there anything you want to say? I can pass it on for you. Please apologize to my mom and dad for me. Their daughter is unfilial and can no longer fulfill her duty. What about the young master? I laughed bitterly and self-deprecatingly. What was there to say? I only want to never see him again for all eternity. He sighed, let out a sigh of lament, looked at me one last time, and started the switch. The transparent Lotus stove slowly rose, exposing itself to the crowd. But the person inside had long been replaced by a dummy made in my likeness. Julian frowned, looking at the emotionless and serene person inside the glass stove. Seeing Atone like this, he felt a pang of inexplicable discomfort in his heart. He called over the responsible bodyguard. Did she say anything when she went in? The bodyguard hesitated, then reported truthfully, Ms. Atone said. She only wishes to never see you again in this life. Julian was stunned for a moment, his heart tightened, and an endless sense of panic surged up. He crushed the glass in his hand, his voice trembling. What did you say? What does she mean by that? Is she still blaming me? After saying that, he snorted coldly. In that case, let her continue to stay in there. When she realizes she's wrong, then release her. The bodyguard gave Julian a strange look. Julian's eyes were fixed on the glass stove, but his heart grew increasingly restless. He called a waiter, ordered a drink, and downed it in one gulp, but his heart still felt heavy. After instructing the bodyguard to keep a close watch on Atone, he walked out of the banquet hall alone and stood on the rooftop, lost in thought. Hey, did you hear? The person in that glass cage is the former Atone, and Julian personally put her in there. Someone unfamiliar with the connection between the Li and Chung families asked curiously, gossiping. Really? Weren't they on good terms before? Why is this? Another person, pretending to be in the know, glanced at her. Oh, you don't know, they broke up a long time ago. It's said that Atone killed Julian's parents and ran away for 3 years. When she came back, her voice was hoarse. Who knows what happened in those 3 years? Julian frowned slightly and walked toward the group of gossiping people. The conversation inside became clearer. Really? How come what I heard is different? I have a cousin who lives out of town who saw her before. He said this Atone was also a victim, that she was treated horribly 3 years ago, and it was even on the news there. If you ask me, Atone is the most pitiful one. First she was kidnapped for half a year and barely escaped without any money. Her parents were sick, and her fiancé found another woman. Now she's locked in this glass cage. I heard that this so-called Lotus stove is all fake, that it's specially used for torture. I heard it can even extract oxygen. I saw that Atone wasn't moving just now. She might already be dead. Hey, I also heard that it's a real and fake stove. The one above is a dummy, and the one below is the real person. Julian's mind went blank. He thought of the calm me in the glass cage. His pupils contracted, and he grabbed the bodyguard. How is Atone now? The bodyguard, still unaware of what was happening, reported truthfully, Ms. Atone is still in the glass stove. There's no reaction. Julian's heart ached fiercely. He rushed into the banquet hall and smashed the glass stove. Water nearly 100 degrees Celsius gushed out, splashing on Julian. He curled his fingers, his heart aching. Atone. But when he saw the dummy inside, his heart was filled with complete panic and confusion. His previously indifferent and ruthless eyes were now filled with fear. He grabbed the bodyguard and roared, "Where's Atone?" The bodyguard, who had never seen Julian like this before, trembled and pointed down. Ms. Isla told me to remove Ms. Atone's oxygen and put her in the storage room below, and that someone would be sent to retrieve her. Julian didn't care about anything else and jumped down, but he could only see a broken glass stove and a pool stained with blood. He trembled and put his hand into the pool. The scalding hot water, still radiating heat, reminded him of what had happened. Isla arrived to find the scene as it was, and when she saw the shattered glass, her heart clenched. "Julian, brother, what happened here? Where did my sister go?" She shouted dramatically, hiding behind Julian as if a frightened bird. Julian paused, thinking of the bodyguard's words, and roared angrily. Why did you tell the bodyguard to drain the oxygen? Why didn't you say the so-called Lotus stove had 2 levels? Isla's delicate body trembled slightly, and she sobbed softly. I'm sorry Julian brother, Isla didn't mean to. Isla only just found out that this Lotus stove has 2 parts. It was that person who told Isla that even if the oxygen was drained, she could hold out until the end. Isla thought my sister used to be on the swimming team, so holding her breath for a few minutes shouldn't be a problem. It's all Isla's fault. She knelt down in front of Julian and slapped herself hard, her voice soft and delicate. Touching Isla's tears, Julian's originally furious heart was tinged with pity. He frowned and helped Isla up. It's okay, it's not your fault. Isla leaned into Julian's arms. Sister. After Isla found out, she checked the surveillance and found she was rescued by a strange man and she hesitated, not knowing how to say it, her tone implying a deeper meaning. Julian frowned and said coldly, and what? Just say it. Isla seemed to have no choice but to open her mouth. And that person seems to be the same group that kidnapped Uncle and Aunt before. Isla only took a quick glance and isn't sure. Maybe Isla is mistaken. Sister always said she didn't know those people. Isla shouldn't have suspected her. What? Julian's hands trembled violently, his eyes filled with anger at being played. He called the bodyguard. Find the people who were gossiping just now. Pull up the surveillance footage and see where Atone went. Search the entire capital to find her. The bodyguard was drenched in sweat and dared not say a word, immediately running out, while the remaining bodyguards stayed behind to look for clues. On the other side, I was awakened by the so-called kidnapper Isla mentioned. He looked at me grimly, grabbing my hair. His voice was like a ghost crawling out of hell. Atone, you've been so hard to find. I saw his face clearly, and my body shrank back, not expecting to be rescued by him. What do you want to do? Don't come near me. I've already left the truth for Julian. He'll find out I'm gone soon, and he won't let you go. He chuckled lightly. You'd better come with me obediently. Do you think Isla wanted me to take you away so Julian would think we were a team? How could he possibly come to save you? He threw the surveillance footage in front of me. In the footage, I was leaning on him, as if hugging him. Isla, you would go so far as to put me to death. His phone, which was placed to the side, vibrated. He answered it casually. Have you left yet? Julian has already started looking for you. Find a place to hide first until I've taken care of things here, and can come find you. Isla's voice came through the phone. She didn't seem to be far away, and Julian's voice could be heard inside. I whimpered a few times, shouting into the phone. Julian! Julian! Julian, who was originally walking away, suddenly stopped and looked back in Isla's direction. Seeing Isla's figure with her back turned, frowning as she spoke on the phone, and thinking of the gossip he had heard, a hint of suspicion arose in his heart. He instructed the bodyguard. Investigate what Isla was doing just now. After speaking, he frowned and walked back. On the other side, Isla was still unaware, and continuing to call the kidnapper. Julian is already looking for you. As we agreed, I've put the money in the garage in the suburbs. Take the money, and no matter what you do to Atone, never come back, and never let her appear in front of me again. Don't mention what happened before, let's pretend we never met. I'll help you clear up things here. Just help me get rid of Atone completely. Julian's footsteps stopped in place, as if falling into an ice cave. At that moment, the bodyguard who had stayed behind to investigate the scene appeared in front of Julian with a black tape recorder. Julian turned on the tape recorder. There were 2 crackling sounds. Isla's cold, heartless voice came from within. Atone, I never thought you would have the chance to come back. I shouldn't have let you go in the first place. I should have let you die with those 2 bitches. Julian's hand turned ice cold in an instant. He couldn't bear it any longer. He pushed open the door and snatched Isla's phone. The person on the other end of the line didn't know what was happening, and thought it was Isla. Got it. I'm going to the garage in the suburbs now. I tied Atone to the cliff. The rope will break in half an hour. This time, Atone is definitely going to die. Inside, there were Atone's agonizing struggles and sobs. Her already damaged vocal cords were even more torn, emitting a jarring screech. The camera turned and focused on Atone. The moment Julian saw Atone, his mind went blank. The bottomless cliff was like a gaping beast, ready to devour her body in an instant, leaving no trace. He shouted, "Atone, wait for me." Without another thought, he ran to the airport. The bodyguards, who had tracked him, were shocked by Julian's appearance. They had never seen the cold, ruthless, and decisive man of the business world like this. Holding the evidence they had found, they were stunned. Julian's car sped off like a rocket. On the bottomless cliff, the rope was tightly embedded in my flesh. I watched the rope about to break, every second filled with despair. Just as the rope was about to break, Julian rushed to the edge of the cliff like lightning. At the last second, he grabbed the broken rope. His clean black suit was rumpled, his carefully styled hair was messed up by the wind. He crawled on the edge of the cliff, shouting without regard for his image, "Atone, don't be afraid. I'll save you right away." He desperately held onto the rope, using all his strength to pull her up. Fresh blood dripped onto my face from the rope. I saw a look of anxiety and worry on Julian's usually calm face, a look I had never seen before. A perversely joyful feeling arose in my heart. I grabbed the hand that was holding the rope and whispered, "Julian, do you regret it?" The voice was as light as the wind, piercing Chengye's ears. His heart was already riddled with holes, tattered. Tears of regret welled up and dripped onto his palm. "Atone, what are you going to do?" I laughed and, in front of his eyes, let go of his hand, then peeled his fingers away one by one. Realizing what I was about to do, Julian was filled with panic. He didn't care about anything else and frantically tried to grab her. "No. Atone, no." But I had already released his hand, letting myself fall. The last sound I heard before closing my eyes was Julian's desperate roar. Julian knelt on the edge of the cliff, staring blankly at the broken rope in his hand, tears falling drop by drop. The rope was stained red with blood, whether it was Atone's blood or his own. The bodyguards arrived to find him in this state. Hesitantly, they stepped forward and woke Julian. "Mr. Julian, we've tracked down Ms. Isla's whereabouts as you requested. I also found out that Ms. Isla was involved in your parents' accident 3 years ago." Isla was brought before Julian by the bodyguards. She trembled and crawled towards Julian. "Brother Julian, listen to me. This is a misunderstanding." Julian raised his dark eyes and looked at Isla, his eyes unreadable. His cold voice made it impossible to guess what he was thinking. What misunderstanding? Isla was stunned. She hadn't expected Julian to be willing to talk to her. She quickly grabbed Julian's arm, nestled into his arm as before and sobbed softly. "Sister forced me to act like this. She wanted brother to forgive her and put all the blame on me. She said that was the only way brother would believe her." Isla just couldn't bear to see brother in a difficult position, so she was forced to agree to sister's request. Julian laughed and asked, "Is that so?" Isla didn't understand what Julian meant. She nodded and said, "Yes." Julian stood up, lightly brushed the dust off his clothes, and said coldly without batting an eye, "Tie her to the edge of the cliff and cut the rope little by little, repeating this every day. The rest of you, go down there and search. I want to see her alive or dead. I don't believe Atone is dead." Isla hadn't expected the man who had been speaking softly to her to suddenly change. She struggled wildly and screamed, "Julian, you can't do this to me. Julian." But Julian just glanced at her with disgust and said coldly, "You don't deserve to call my name." Isla hadn't expected Julian to be so ruthless. She froze in place, her face pale. Hanging on the edge of the cliff, the fear of death threatened her. But Julian just watched coldly. She finally saw the man's cold-bloodedness and shouted in despair, "Julian, you are a cold-blooded and heartless person. You deserve it. You deserve not to get Atone. Atone is dead, you deserve it, you deserve it." Julian staggered, paused in place, and felt a sharp pain in his heart. He walked up to Isla and slapped her hard. "Shut up." Isla spat out a mouthful of blood and, looking at Julian's bloodshot eyes, laughed maniacally. "Can't take it anymore? You don't know how much Atone did for you. You don't know what Atone suffered 3 years ago. Do you know why Atone can't speak? Do you know why she didn't apologize to me at first? Because she's mute. She was traumatized and couldn't speak. She's sick. Julian's pupils shrank. He remembered the report in Adeline's hand and her hoarse voice when he first met her in the hospital. His heart churned, and he asked in a trembling voice, "What did you do to her?" Isla laughed. "We did too much. For example, tied her up, locked her in a glass jar, locked her in a dog cage and made her fight for food with stray dogs, or made her scream for 3 nights. With each sentence Isla spoke, Julian's heart ached more. At the end, his body swayed and he fell to the ground, covering his face and crying. Isla laughed heartily, tears falling on the ground as she laughed. She cursed, "Julian, you deserve it. A cold-blooded and heartless person like you doesn't deserve to be loved. Adeline is dead. The Adeline who loved you the most is dead." Julian couldn't take it anymore. He forced himself to stand up. Isla's words pierced his heart like needles, making him unable to bear it. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared, "Shut up." He fiercely grabbed her neck. Isla struggled to breathe, filled with regret. "Julian." Just as she was about to suffocate, the bodyguard who went to find Adeline hurried back and stopped Julian, who was consumed by anger. "Mr. Julian. Miss Adeline has been found." Below the cliff was a rushing river. After I fell, I was washed ashore. Fortunately, there were no rocks where I fell. I was found by the bodyguard searching for me on the way back. Julian regained a moment of reason upon hearing my name. The bodyguard had already taken me to the hospital. By the time Julian arrived, I had been pushed into the ward by the nurse. My parents rushed over after hearing the news and comforted me carefully, holding my hand. They hugged me in their arms. I smiled and reassured them that I was fine. That was the scene Julian saw when he entered. He stood stunned at the door for a moment. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen such a harmonious family scene. When my parents saw Julian, they lost their good temper and looked at him coldly. Knowing that he had done wrong, Julian quickly walked up to me and knelt down. "Adeline, I'm sorry. I'm here today to ask you to give me another chance. I've already punished Isla. I will hire the best doctors in the world to treat you." I interrupted him coldly. "Julian, we're over. I will never forgive you." Seeing my cold eyes, Julian froze on the spot. He incredulously wanted to grab my hand, but I coldly pulled it away. Julian was stunned for a moment, but he wasn't deterred by my coldness. He laughed and walked up to me. "It's okay. It doesn't matter if you don't forgive me now. I'll prove it to you." In the following days, Julian came to see me every day and hired doctors to consult for me. He cooked for me himself every day, consulted with doctors, and made throat-protecting soup for me. He also stayed by my side at night. My body was suffering from major injuries one after another, and my high fever persisted. That night, I was sent to the emergency room again due to a high fever. When Julian came to see me, my parents stopped him at the door. He begged my parents at the door to let him in to see me. "Uncle and Auntie, I really know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. Let her stay with me. I can't live without her." In a daze, I heard my parents coldly reject him. "Julian, do you want her to die again?" Julian froze for a moment, his face turning pale as he recalled the past. "That's not what I meant." "But that's exactly what you're doing now. Adeline doesn't want to see you. Every time we see you, we remember what you did to her, let alone Adeline. Your appearance is only hurting her." I don't know how long it lasted, but I heard Julian crying. He choked up and said, "I understand." After that, I fell asleep in a daze under the effect of anesthesia. When I woke up again, Julian was gone. I saw a letter of apology he wrote to me on the bedside table, along with a card and a stock transfer agreement. I didn't accept them and returned them. Julian didn't send anyone again. I was discharged from the hospital smoothly under the care of my parents. The day I was discharged from the hospital, the weather was fine, with a gentle breeze. My parents accompanied me and took Grandma to Lincheng. We bought a property and opened a supermarket in Lincheng. I never heard Julian's name again. It was only many years later that I received a strange letter and a will. I was stunned for a long time. I donated all of Julian's inheritance to the mountain areas. Then I burned all the letters. The rising ashes slowly ascended into the air, the beginning and end of a fate. From then on, You and I will never meet again in life or death.